Hello. Hello. Rob Lohman here at swimforrecovery.com on a, what is it, Saturday evening. Haven't done one this late yet, but just that's the way the day rolled today. So here we are in the evening hanging out on Saturday, September 17th for the 17th day of Swim for Recovery. And it was interesting. I ran into somebody today and they said, man, I wish I would have signed up to swim with you. And the reality is, it's not really to sign up and swim with me unless you wanted to, which is kind of cool. But it's really just to create awareness. I'm doing the swimming every day, 1 mile a day for 30 days. That's 30 miles, a total of 1,980 miles. I'm sorry, laps. So far I have swum 17 miles, 1,122 laps, almost 300 football fields in length. So gives you kind of a perspective. And whether you're watching live or online or a replay or wherever, it's always fun to kind of say hi and mention where you're tapping in from around the country, which is really cool. And then also encouraging people to share the post with people that you know, because you know people I don't know, and we need those people to know. Not everyone's on social media, so please grab this domain name and text it out to your friends and ask them to check it out. That would be amazing. So that's cool. And then also keep in mind, end of the month, September 29th, big party. It's going to be, you can register at Eventbrite, but it's going to be a big party with several inspirational speakers and free food here in the Denver area. I do want to clarify one thing. I saw someone post something like, free book, I'm in. I'm not mailing books to people. It's literally for the people locally here and only as supplies and free books last. So that's kind of it. So we're going to dive into another great story. Charles the story is awesome. He actually interviewed me on his podcast show, which he'll talk about in his story as well. So I'm going to turn it over to him for that. And then at the end, we'll wrap up and just talk about the party going on September 29th. Actually, excuse me. I'll go ahead and pull up some details for you right now. Let me grab the flyer real quick. There it is. Let me throw it up here on the other screen, and we'll get you the details about that. So where to go? It's out there somewhere. Hasn't pulled up yet. That's all right. Don't worry about it too much. Let's see, documents. I'm here with you, but yeah, put in the comments kind of, I don't know where you're tapping in from, what's going on in your world these days. And we'll get this flyer. There we go. Flyer pulled up for you. So, all right, back to StreamYard. There we go. So let me share the screen and I'll show you this real quick. So this is the flyer for the event going on September 29th. You can register for this at this domain name. But again, it's if you're here in Colorado, just come to the live event. I encourage you not to stream the event, but just come live. But September 29th, towards the very end of swimforrecovery.com, we have several speakers. We're still finalizing this one right here. But Kirk, Bree, Gary, Frank, myself, and we're going to give away free books, a copy of my addiction intervention book. So all the sponsors are making that possible at the bottom of this page. And so we'll have food, free admission. So we're going to say thanks to Elite Roofing, Landmark Recovery, Amari Global, Connect, Gallus Medical Detoxes, and the patented Accelerate Fuel tabs. And that's how you register for it. So it will be streamed online through the free spiritual community page, and we're figuring out the rest of those details. But that's what's going on September 29th, and I keep talking about that. So now we're going to pull up Charles's video, and we're going to get started with that and let you just enjoy what Charles has to say.
Thanks for asking. Yeah.
Hey, here we are on swimforrecovery.com again, and it's cool to be able to interview Charles today because I was on his podcast show a year or two ago. I don't know how long ago it's been, but it's been a while, man, and you're still kicking hard and changing lives through podcasting and everything else you do. So I'm glad to have you on the show, man.
I'm grateful to be on, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I guess it's not the show. It's more like the Swim for Recovery campaign. But
Right.
yeah, we'll get to a full Charles podcast episode one of these days and get it booked. So, but for now, we are talking about recovery stories and a 10-minute recovery story. So, Charles, what would you describe as your sobriety date if you have one?
I do have one, and that's December 6th, 2014.
Nice. Some people have had sobriety years. They don't
Right.
have a date. So I realize that
Sure.
some people just say it was sometime in the year or whatever.
Yeah.
And what were your substances of choice?
More.
More. Okay, that involves margaritas, olives, no, more of anything.
Really, Rob, alcohol was my first love and my ultimate downfall, but I played addiction whack-a-mole for more than 20 years.
Yeah, and the hammer just kept going, didn't it? It
It
was just
did
like,
indeed.
oh man. And I forgot to tell you your podcast called The Way Out Podcast, y'all. So go check it out. Charles does a great job with that too. And what city, state are you sitting in today?
We are in the Twin Cities. I should say we, like there's more than one of me. I am in the Twin Cities in Minnesota.
All right. Well, you yourself and
Indeed.
you are there
Yeah.
together with yourself. But there was probably a time in your life where you didn't really like to hang out with those three people, you, yourself, and you, Charles. So
No doubt
tell
about
us
it.
kind of how things just kind of started and how it grew.
And I'm sitting here with my dog, so I guess it is we,
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm, Louis, the recovery dog, and I. Yeah, Rob, for me, as I look back, and hindsight is 2020 for sure, but I really believe I had big addict and alcoholic switches embedded in me. My mom's side of the family has alcoholism all over it, addiction all over it. My dad always used to say I had the quickest hand to the cookie jar.
Oh, okay. All
Mhm.
right.
So maybe food was, the first over consumed thing from my perspective, maybe my first addiction, but my mom died when I was 11 years old, and that really added fuel to what I believed an already growing fire of addiction and alcoholism. First time I drank, Rob, it was a nirvana like experience for me, transformational. It did for me things I could not do for myself. It
Mm.
took away all the pain, all the anxiety, all the insecurity. It and it unlocked things in me that prior to that moment I was unable to unlock myself. I could hit on the girls, I could stick up to the guys, I was funny, I was carefree, I was the embodiment of the person I wanted to be. And that really set the stage for a 20 plus year love affair with alcohol and other substances too. When alcohol would get out of control, and it often did, as time progressed, I tried to manage it. The first thing I tried was I'm not going to do hard liquor anymore because every time I drink hard liquor, I end up in a place I don't recognize and I don't know how I got there. And I get to hear all these crazy stories of the things I did, which is funny when you're 16, less funny when you're 25. Right? So okay, I won't do hard liquor anymore. I'll only drink beer. Well, beer becomes unmanageable because I drink too many of them, and that becomes problematic. So I don't do that. I try to manage that, but then weed or sex or porn. And that's why I call it 20 plus years of addiction whack a mole, because anytime I somewhat successfully managed down or stopped one behavior or substance, another one would crop up, and that would become unmanageable. And and over any length of time, two truths became unavoidably evident to me. Number one, over any length of time, my alcoholism and addiction will become unmanageable. My use will become unmanageable. Some sort of consequence, a lost relationship, some sort of emotional consequence, some sort of violation of my own principles, any myriad of those, or any combination of those sometimes. Sometimes that all happened at once, a lost relationship, a violation of my own principles, and an external consequence. Rob,
The
that
trifecta, the trifecta of addiction, and it is a crazy journey. But I wanted to go back to something you talked about with when your mom passed away.
Mhm.
Um, did she pass away from addictions or substance abuse, or she just passed away of natural causes?
Breast cancer.
Breast cancer. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
So at 11 years old, there you are,
indeed.
and your mom has passed away, and so sorry to hear that too. I mean, that's a big deal for a young
It
boy to
was.
lose his mom and not to have that nurturing person in your life along the way. And so I just want to acknowledge that because that's a
Thank
big
you.
deal. And again, I haven't had the privilege of interviewing you to the journey that you interviewed me, so I want to pick up on those things as we share more of the story too. And so you've got your whack-a-mole, so your biceps are
Yeah,
really strong, your forearms are
indeed.
strong because you're whacking it. And you've interviewed, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people. You probably see that in so many people's stories, like they get
I
sober and then
do.
something else comes up. And so for
Absolutely.
you, the whack-a-mole got a little bit too much, and at some point things turned to where you're whack-a-moling too fast and the substances went away one by one, or was it just kind of like a boom epiphany and they're gone?
Yeah, a good question. So the other truth that I became really apparent to me is that over any length of time, trying to be abstinent from substance or behaviors was also unmanageable. I could do it for a while, but I couldn't do it for very long because I would get increasingly restless, irritable, and discontent without the aid of these substances or behaviors. And I would convince myself that going back to one of these substances or behaviors was better than the alternative, which was either I was going to spontaneously combust or I was going to like choke a fool, right? So that's the two truths. My substance use and behaviors became unmanageable, but also trying to be abstinent from them became unmanageable. And it came to a head really on the back end of a third marriage. Okay? My wife at the time looked at me and said, "Charlie, you drink every day." I said, "Yeah, but baby, it's only a few."
Mm,
Problem, Rob,
yeah.
is that means she started counting. And so then I'm doing some sort of like weird, like rotation program out of the garage into the fridge, right? And the problem with trying to outsmart somebody that's A, already smarter than you, and B, not drunk is it doesn't work out very well. So she quickly realized it was way more than a few and that I was not eating all day as well. So I was rapidly physically declining. My substance use was rapidly increasing. And she says, "You got a problem." It's not a problem. I can quit any time I want. And she said, "Okay, do it." You know, I should have seen that coming.
Like you said, she's smarter than you, right? So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I should have seen that one coming. So I quit for 30 days on Marlboros and resentments, which I don't recommend, and said, "See, told you I don't have a problem." She says, "Okay." Uh, It's my son's birthday coming up. It's Thanksgiving coming up. This is in 2014. Having my parents over, I say, "Let's get some alcohol since I don't have a problem." She said, "Okay, I'll go. I'll go to the liquor store. I got it. I got enough liquor to get an army drunk, and there was 3 of us drinking, which made 0 sense because I knew everything was riding on this, and I mean everything. And I rarely liked to put myself in the box where I only had a few. I knew myself well enough to know that I couldn't predict whether that was possible or not for me. But I knew that day I could not get drunk or it was over. And so I promised myself I wouldn't get drunk that day. And I meant it. And my parents come over, the wine gets opened, and I can't stop. I cannot stop. I want to. Every fiber of my being wants to stop, and I can't stop. I'm drinking half drink wine from my parents. I almost cut my hand off carving the turkey. Everybody knows I'm wasted. And they leave, my parents. It's my son's birthday, my oldest son. And my wife at the time looks at me and says, "What is wrong with you?" And she wasn't trying to be mean. She really wanted to know because I didn't tell her about any of my substance use or addictive. People didn't know that. That was, I didn't even admit it to myself. Why was I going to tell you, right? That
Right. Yeah.
I have a
Right.
problem, right? She's like, "You got to go to treatment." And I knew she was serious, so I went to treatment not because I wanted to get sober. I desperately didn't want to get divorced again. Desperately. And I go to that treatment intake, and for the first time in my life, I got completely honest. I wasn't planning on it, but I did. I got completely honest about the full nature and scope of my addiction and alcoholism and my addictive behaviors. And it felt awful and good at the same time, but mostly just I was relieved to stop. I was relieved to have to not run from it anymore and hide from it anymore.
Mm.
I was so sick of trying to hide it and manage it. And so that was such a relief, but I didn't know what to do. Like I had everything that I had tried up to that moment didn't work, right? And so I was willing for the very first time not only to be completely honest about it, but also ask for help and then do what was recommended. And so I did. And I just started my treatment process and I put everything I had into it because everything I had done up to that moment didn't work. And I was willing to do whatever it took not to ever feel like that ever again. It wasn't really necessarily about not drinking again or not using again or whatever. I just wanted to get better, and never wanted to feel that way again. And that started my recovery process.
Wow, that deep down desire, right? Finally came up, and it was there somewhere all along. We just couldn't
100%.
bring it out. And so there you go. You had the motivation for change. You changed. You went and did it, and you got totally honest. So listen up, people. If you're going to treatment, don't waste the 30, 60, 90 days or whatever. Like, get the crap out and leave it there. They can handle it. Come home a free person. So now, like today, and again, this has been 7 years. Wait, no, eight
7,
years.
yeah, 7+ years, almost
Yeah,
8. It'll be
yeah.
8 years this December. Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say 8 years. Yeah, because I remembered I remember the year, but the month usually
Right.
helps when it's when it's the year change and stuff like that too. So, what are some? We only have a couple minutes left, but what are some things that you do today to
Mhm.
help maintain just I don't know a positive life?
Yeah, great question. So I worked the steps in order with a sponsor, the 12 steps, and that was transformational for me, as was developing a relationship with a higher power that I choose to call God. I hated God. I wanted nothing to do with God, but I wiped the slate clean and I started praying to a God that I had zero concept of because if I could make it up, it wasn't big enough to save me. Okay. And that God that I didn't understand, that I had no concept of, started fundamentally changing how I experienced the world. And that was the seeds that those were the seeds of faith that I needed in order to be able to really launch my recovery into a meaningful and enduring recovery. And so the essentials of my recovery are still very much rooted in the 12 steps, although I have an and program. I do CBT, I did therapy. EMDR therapy was transformational for me. And I really believe working the 12 steps in order with a sponsor, along with EMDR therapy, was the magic combination that I needed. And today, I am of service through my podcast, The Way Out podcast. I help other people in the 12-step community. I'm a recovery coach. And so I help people from a recovery coach perspective. But every morning I get up, I meditate, I pray, and I do something active. And for those people that are new in recovery, replace that that behavior with something physically active that you enjoy, and it makes a huge difference. You could do swimming.
There you go. It's a great exercise and a great
Indeed.
thing to do. Yes. You know, and that was one thing. I mean, it was swimming was so big when I was in high school, and then alcohol took over swimming. And then in my recovery, I mean, swimming is like my mental health. So you've got to find your jam, right? Figure out what's works. I mean,
Absolutely.
I can imagine your jam is hearing people's stories because
I love it.
you've grown the Way Out podcast to be huge. And so if no one's ever checked out an episode, I don't do whole lot of like endorsements or pushing people to what people do professionally now, except for you're probably the only second guy in this. I interviewed Arnie Wexler recently, and
Oh yeah.
his gambling stuff because it's so unique because it's such a giving heart. There's not like a thing behind it, right? So
Yeah.
so what you're doing with that is totally cool. And how's your relationship with your wife today?
You know what? We got divorced,
Did
and
you?
it's yes, and it's the best thing that could have ever happened to me. She gave me the greatest gift and stayed married to me long enough for me to finish my treatment process, even though she hated my guts. And I am forever grateful for that. And today, 7+ years later, I'm engaged to an amazing woman, and I would have never met my fiance if that divorce didn't happen and I didn't enter into recovery. So, and I would never thought in a million years that that would be in the cards for me. So I'm extraordinarily grateful for that. We've been together for over 4 years, and she's an amazing woman.
Cool. I'm glad I asked the question.
Yeah, yeah,
You never know. We just ask questions that pop into our heads, right? We don't
a
know where they
hundred percent,
sometimes.
a
So
hundred percent.
well, hey, Charles, thanks for sharing a little bit of your story on swimforrecovery.com, man. And I look forward to people hearing this and changing their lives. So keep up the good work. Appreciate you.
Rob, thank you so much for everything that you do. I love the Swim for Recovery campaign. It's amazing. We'll be definitely promoting that on our respective social media as well. But thank you for having me and thank you for what you do.
You got it. Talk to you soon.
All right. See ya.